Welcome back. Great to have you with us on The Full View. Now, a whopping 40% of jobs at the post office are reportedly at stake. And even more if the state-owned entity fails to come up with funds and a plan to survive. Unions say the South African Post Office has announced plans to start consulting on retrenchment, and they're threatening strike action. Well, earlier this year, Treasury projected that the number of post office employees could shrink by around 6,000 to just over 10,000 over the next 2 years. The Auditor General recently told Parliament that the Post Office raked up losses of more than 2 billion rand, liabilities of 6.5 billion rand in the last financial year. Staff members also had their medical aid suspended when the Post Office failed to settle its debts. Well, let's find out more. We're joined now by the President of the Communication Workers Union, Clyde Mervin. Mr. Mervin, thank you for being with us. What is management saying right now, and what is your response?
Well, good afternoon, Francis, and good afternoon to your listeners. I think first is that we have been served with a notice of a section 189, which was served to us on the 4th of November. But prior to the 4th of November, we had a number of meetings with the Post Office. And in one of the meetings, which was on the 31st of August, where the Post Office then came with the proposal that they want to cut salaries of workers. And workers have to work 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, and slash workers with a 50% cut of salary. Now, in that meeting, CW and the various other unions rejected that proposal. And when we left the meeting, on Monday the 4th, we find the notice on the 4th of November that management wanted to now start retrenching. But there's a number of issues and historical issues which is not correct. I think one of the issues we must also blame poor management of the Post Office. The AG report recently have given a clear directive that there's been no consequent management on the fruitless expenditure of Post Office. Now, if there's no fruitless expenditure, it even clearly indicates that there's no consequence management, even the AG finds that even documentation in the Post Office cannot be found. And today, as we speak, none of them has been disciplined. But there's historic issues. The same South African Post Office, as we speak today, all medical aids have suspended members from having access to the medical aid because the South African Post Office has not paid. Now, as Communication Workers Union, we are very clear. We have taken a clear posture on this matter. We are busy as we speak to you now. Our members are currently getting feedback, and we are planning a massive strike to the Post Office. It can never be correct that the executive management is not held accountable. And two, the same government which we are speaking to, if you look at what's happening with government in terms of benefits, they are getting all the benefits. Even as we speak, they are not even paying for electricity, but the ordinary worker which is now punished. The same South African Post Office owes workers 115 million of the salaries of back pay. Now, the Auditor General made clear damning allegations about the Post Office. We are faced now with, how do you start engaging with us on Section 189 when there's so much outstanding statutory benefits which have not been paid? Workers are getting letters from medical aids that they owe thousands of rands. So as far as we are concerned, we're in a situation whereby the Post Office management needs to be held accountable.
Mr. Mervin, are workers getting paid right now?
As we speak, we'll see this month. Workers have received their salary. But as we have received salary, I think one of the issues we, as the union, need to deal with is to declare some of the executives delinquent. Yeah. Because a worker on his salary has been paid, he's been paying over his medical aid, his SARS, his UIF, but all these benefits, SAPO have not paid it over. What have they done with this?
So if a post office worker is sick, they could be in serious trouble because the medical aid won't pay. Is that the situation?
As we speak, a number of workers have not received, they can't even receive medication for the chronic, some are having chronic conditions. And it's sad because at one point when Medipos also could not pay workers last month, number of workers was very ill. And I think we are even investigating a worker who died in Bloemfontein in Brandfort when this worker was denied access to a private hospital because of medical which have not been paid. So Communication Workers Union is busy investigating a case of a worker who died while not having access to his medical aid, while this worker has paid medical aid on a monthly basis based on his salary deductions.
Mr. Mervin, I understand your concern, and so you say there may be a massive strike on the cards. There are obviously complaints, But it sounds like there's a fundamental problem here, that the post office may not be viable. They've been asking for money. It sounds like Treasury is not going to grant that. How can taxpayers be asked to bear losses of more than 2 billion? How can the post office become competitive overnight? Are you scared that the whole thing may be crumbling?
Look, the post office is on the verge of collapse, and the collapse is still on the base of the DOF management. Communication Workers Union have once called for a forensic audit. And when we called for a forensic audit in 2020, it was approved, but it has been delayed by management because they knew to the extent that if they go to that, it's going to expose a lot of rot in the company. As we speak, if you go to the AG report, it clearly says that there was lots of fruitless expenditure, there was a lot of fraud, and no one is accountable. So it clearly shows you that the blame should be on the doorstep of the executive management and the board of directors of the post office. And obviously as government as well, government seems not to be bothered by the state of affairs in the post office at all. It's the same government we expect the workers to vote for them in the next coming elections. It's the same government we expect workers to go out with their families and vote. I think Communication Workers Union is very clear that our support looks like it might not happen because of the state of the own entities where we are organizing as Communication Workers Union.
Okay, so you want government to intervene, but without a change, without people understanding why they should use the post office. I mean, the grant's not even being paid at post office anymore. Of course, there are some services, but without some fundamental change, you may strike and the whole thing could come crumbling down anyway, like SAA. In these sorts of circumstances, how will a strike even be effective? I hate to ask, but how will it actually help?
Look, we must be very clear on this process. Workers are on the back foot for the last 2 years. Actually, not for the last 2 years, for some years now. It's the same workers where they are going to work, there's no tools of trade to work. It's the same workers who goes to work, there's no toilet paper, there's no cleaning materials. It's the same workers who take money out of their own pockets and buy these things. It's the same workers who have not received increase for the last 4 years. It's the same workers who are on the back foot. And the only way for CW members is either we fight or we die. That's the reality. But what we are saying is workers must be making a call. We must go to the streets and call upon government even to remove this executive management of the post office because they've been crumbling the state-owned entity. If the AG report can be taken very seriously, you'll see management is at the doorstep of the mess in the post office. It's the same management who knew that in terms of e-commerce, logistics, we could have been very far. But if you go to the post office today, our systems have just collapsed.
All right. We have to leave it there, Mr. Mervin, but we'll follow, and we have asked the post office if it would like the right to respond. That was the president of the Communication Workers Union, Clyde Mervin. Let's take a look at your sporting action now.